Lesson 8. Reading. Food.
Listen.
Man must eat in order to live. One of the most important concerns of man during his life on Earth has been to make certain that he has enough food to eat when he needs it. Prehistoric man had little choice in what he ate. He ate what he could find. He lived on roots and berries, eggs, fruit, and the meat of small animals. Early man had no way to control his food supply. When he ate all the food in one place, he had to move to another region to find food enough to eat. If there was no rain, or if the weather was too hot or cold, plants would not grow, and he would have little or no food. Man's life changed when he learned to grow plants and to tame animals. He also learned to use fire to prepare his food. He learned to make tools and weapons, and to make containers to hold and store his food. Man could now live in one place and produce his own food. Civilization, as we know it, had begun. Great civilizations slowly developed in regions where food was plentiful, along the Nile River in Egypt, and by the Yellow River in China. The kinds of plants which are raised by man are different in each geographical or climatic region. In the colder regions, very few plants can be grown. In the warmer parts of the world, great varieties of plants are found. In Asia, rice has become the most important crop. In North America, the most important grains are wheat and corn, or maize. In Europe and North Africa, wheat, oats, and barley are grown. In the tropical regions of the world, many kinds of fruit grow naturally or are raised by man. With the development of methods of food preservation, it became possible to send most food products from one part of the world to another. Today, foods are canned, frozen, pickled, and dehydrated, and sent all over the world. Man is no longer dependent on food he grows in his own area. As man has learned more about plants and animals, the production of food has become a more technical and specialized process. In the future, it seems possible that vast quantities of food may be obtained from the ocean. Food may also be produced in new ways. Man's food problem is not solved, however. The world's population is increasing at a tremendous rate. Man will need to use all his specialized knowledge about food production in order to feed the ever-increasing number of people who will inhabit the earth.
Reading checkup. Choose the best answer, A, B, or C, to complete the statements that are based on the reading. 1. Prehistoric man often had to move to different areas. B, because he ate all the food where he lived. Two, early man had little choice in what he ate. A, because he didn't know how to grow food. Three, man's life began to change. B, when he learned to grow plants and to tame animals. Four, man is no longer dependent on food he grows in his own area.
C, because he has learned various methods of food preservation.
5, feeding everyone in the world is still a problem. B, because the world's population is increasing so fast. Written assignment. Write a paper on some aspect of food in your country. Your paper may be on any subject: history of foods in your geographical area, imports and exports, the fishing industry, preparation and history of certain famous dishes served on important holidays, etc.
End of Lesson 8. The new intensive course in English. Advanced Part 1. Lesson 9. Topics for discussion. 1. The World Food Crisis.
More than 1 billion people on Earth at the present time face hunger and the threat of famine. For the most part, these are people who have an income of less than $100 a year and who spend 80% of this income on food. Widespread drought, great increases in the cost of food, and food shortages have all combined to cause serious threats of famine on a large scale. In addition to immediate problems, many authorities point out that the world population is increasing by 70 million people a year. What of the future, they ask? If the world population increases at the rate of 2% a year, and if there is no increase in per capita consumption, food production would have to double in little more than a generation to keep the present balance. How can this be done? Discuss some of the problems in the world food situation. What are some possible solutions? What do some of the experts in the field and responsible world agencies say should be done? Do you have any solutions to the world food crisis?
The accompanying tape recording for this lesson contains a discussion about the world food crisis. Listen to the tape to get ideas you can use in the discussion.
It's 5:30 and time now for our weekly program entitled Timely Topics for Discussion. Tonight, our topic is the world food crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator, Mr. Miles Long.
Thank you. This evening we have two people with us who are well qualified to discuss the world food crisis. Mr. Ronald Phelps is a member of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and Miss Elizabeth Bates is a member of the International Development Association, a branch of the World Bank which gives special help, especially in agriculture, to underdeveloped nations. Tell us in a few words what some of the worldwide problems are, Mr. Phelps.
Well, as everyone knows, we have the problem of overpopulation, or of a rapidly increasing world population. More people need more food. This is a very serious problem, but of course it is not the only problem. The high cost of food is another problem of worldwide importance. Inflation and the increased cost of food is making it impossible for the very poor to buy enough food to live on. And recently, there have been great increases in the cost of petroleum, which have also had a great effect on the price of food.
Just how does the cost of petroleum affect the cost of food?
Both fuel and fertilizer are products of petroleum. An increase in the cost of fuel makes it more expensive for a farmer to run his tractors and other farm machinery. And again, if fertilizer costs more, it costs him more to fertilize his fields. If the farmer is to make a living, he must pass these increased costs along to the consumer. Miss Bates.
The weather can also be a problem in connection with food production.
You mean the droughts?
Yes, the droughts and the floods. But I was also referring to the fact that many weathermen believe that the weather around the world is changing. It is changing from mild weather, which is good for growing crops, to weather that is growing colder every year. This makes the growing season shorter, and it also means less growing land.
Yeah, you've been telling us some of the great problems that there are, but are there any solutions to any of these problems? What is being done? What should be done? What about overpopulation, for example, Mr. Phelps?
Well, this will be difficult to solve on a worldwide basis without a great deal of time. There are countries who are opposed to population control because of religious beliefs.
And there are countries where family income depends upon having a number of children to work in the fields and to take care of older people who are no longer able to work.
Yes, and even if controls are agreed upon, there are the difficulties of communication and education because of the millions of people who can't read or write.
I am convinced that we either face some type of population control in the future, or the world population will be controlled by famine or disease. These are ancient population controls, you know, but they are not very attractive methods.
We had hoped for some time that additional technological advances, new kinds of seeds, new methods of growing, would help the farmer produce more food and help the world situation. This is happening, of course, but not fast enough.
I've read of protein being made from petroleum and other substances. Is this kind of thing possible? Is it an answer?
Yes, it's being done, as a matter of fact. But there are 2 or 3 problems here also. One, the price of petroleum has greatly increased the cost of this type of food. 2, there is a limited supply of petroleum in the world. It will not last forever. And 3, the food that is produced must be food that people are willing to eat and like to eat. Not all of the experiments in this area have been successful.
We have been looking to the oceans for some time to supply vast quantities of food. Since 1958, however, there's been a great increase in the amount of fishing, and the supplies of some fish are becoming scarce. We now know that there is not an endless supply of fish in the oceans. There have been studies about growing and harvesting various types of food in the oceans, however, and this may be very possible. It will not in itself solve the world food problem, however.
What other solutions are being discussed?
One suggestion that's receiving serious study is the development of a world food reserve program.
How would this work?
Countries with surplus crops would sell these cheaply to an international organization. This organization would hold the food in reserve until it was needed. When a need developed, food would then be sold to the country needing help.
Yes. Mr. Humphrey of the United States has proposed, for example, that the United States and other grain-producing countries, such as Canada and Australia, provide large quantities of grain in surplus years for such a program. This promises to be a good solution to many of the immediate problems. For the long term, many people now believe that the most important thing to be done is to provide money and education to the billion people in the world who need the most help. This money would be used to improve and increase food production by the very people who need it most. Only in this way, they say, can the world food problem be solved.
There seems to be no one solution to world food problems. Countries of the world are becoming increasingly dependent upon each other. It will only be through cooperation, intelligent planning, and an understanding that there are serious problems with regard to food supply that solutions will be found. I see our time is up. Thank you, Ms. Bates, and thank you, Mr. Phelps, for being with us here today. This is Miles Long wishing you a very pleasant evening.
These are most of the new words that are used in the discussions. Look them up in the dictionary if you need to. New vocabulary in topics 1 and 2. Repeat. Nouns. Advance. Aspect. Authority. Conclusion. Control. Cooperation. Crisis. Disease. Evidence. Generation. Income. Inflation. Mineral. Moderator. Nutrition. Overpopulation. Petroleum. Protein. Scale. Solution. Reserve. Vitamin. Verbs. Control. Oppose. Outline. Adjectives. Endless. Underdeveloped. Well qualified. Widespread. Adverbs. Timely. Expressions. For the long term. hold in reserve, in connection with, per capita, religious belief, World Reserve Food Program.
Names of organizations. FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. IDA, International Development Association of the World Bank.
Two, food and nutrition. Read this article and then discuss it.
Kinds of foods. Scientists have learned a great deal about the kinds of foods people need. They say that there are 7 kinds of foods that people should eat every day. What are these 7 classes of foods? They are 1. Green and yellow vegetables of all kinds, such as string beans, carrots, and peas. 2. Citrus fruits, tomatoes, and lettuce. 3. Potatoes and other fruits and vegetables. Examples of these are beets, onions, corn, apples, peaches, and bananas. 4. Meat of all kinds, fish and eggs. 5. Milk and foods made from milk, such as cheese and ice cream. 6. Bread or cereal. Rice is also in this class of foods. 7. Butter or something similar to butter containing fat. People in different countries and different areas of the world eat different kinds of things. Foods are prepared, cooked, and eaten in many different kinds of ways. People in different countries eat at different times of the day. In some places, people eat once or twice a day. In other countries, people eat 3 or 4 times a day. Scientists say that none of these differences are really important. It doesn't matter whether foods are eaten raw or cooked, canned or frozen. It doesn't matter if a person eats dinner at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or at 11 o'clock at night. The important thing, they say, is that every day a person should eat something from each of the 7 kinds of foods. There are 2 problems, then, in feeding the ever-increasing number of people on Earth. The first is to find some way to feed the world population so that no one is hungry. The second is to make sure that people everywhere have the right kinds of foods to make them grow and to be strong and healthy.
Questions. Give your reasons for agreeing or disagreeing. 1. What have you read in the field of nutrition? 2. Do you agree with the article you have just read? 3. What are your conclusions and beliefs in this area? 4. Do you eat the 7 kinds of foods outlined in the article? 5. Do you believe there is scientific evidence for the body's needs for certain types of vitamins and minerals? 6. Are most doctors authorities on nutrition? 7. What studies are being made in the nutrition field in your country? 8. Social and cultural aspects of food are extremely important in determining what people in any particular country eat. What if the nutritional needs of people in a particular country are not being met? Can anything be done about it? 9. Certain diseases are directly related to the lack of certain vitamins and minerals. Do you know any such diseases? 10. In many countries, children have been growing much taller than their parents. Do you think this is related to nutrition?
3. Table etiquette. Here are some points of etiquette to remember when you are eating in the United States. A polite hostess will forgive every error, but observing these different customs may make you feel more comfortable.
1. The hostess tells everyone where to sit. Each person stands at his or her place until the hostess is ready to sit down.
2. Every man helps seat the woman immediately to his right before he sits down himself.
3. The hostess begins to eat first, or tells everyone to start. Some families say a short prayer of thanks before eating. It would be impolite to begin before this is done.
4. The knife is used only for cutting food. One doesn't use it to bring food to the mouth or to push food onto the fork.
5. The fork is held in the right or left hand, whichever is easier.
6. While eating, the free arm rests on one's lap, not on the table. The knife is not held while eating.
7. Food is cut small enough to fit in one's mouth easily. To cut, hold the food steady with the fork while cutting over the back of the fork with the knife. Once the knife has been used, place it on the plate, not back on the tablecloth.
8. When used for eating, the fork and spoon are held with the thumb on top, between the first and second fingers. Food is not put on the back of the fork.
9. Only the fork or spoon is used to bring food to your mouth, never the knife. Exception. Use fingers for bread or rolls, large raw pieces of carrot and celery.
10. Individual forks or spoons are not used in a serving dish. One does not give food from one's plate to a neighbor.
11. One does not reach in front of a neighbor or across the table. One says, "Please pass the," or "Please, may I have?"
12. Everyone should sit up straight and bring the food to his mouth. Eating bowls or dishes are not picked up off the table.
13. One should eat quietly. One doesn't smack lips or make sipping noises, talk with a mouthful of food, or belch.
14. If seconds are offered and a person is still hungry, he can accept the offer the first time it is made. To accept, say, "Yes, please," or "Yes, thank you."
15. If one is offered something one really can't eat or doesn't like, one should simply say, "No, thank you."
16. Everyone usually finishes eating about the same time. When finished, place the knife and fork on the plate next to each other. Discussion. In what ways do customs or table etiquette in your country differ from those in the United States? Make a list of essential points or rules that a visiting foreigner should know about if eating a meal with a family in your country.
End of Lesson 9.